Welcome to Car and Driver. This is a Ford Bronco that we've driven for 40,000 miles. If you're unfamiliar with our long-term test protocol, we do that many miles in about a year or so to simulate what your new vehicle might be like to live with for the first couple of years of ownership. To that end, we took this Bronco on road trips, we hit the sand dunes, we towed a snowmobile, it delivered Meals on Wheels, it even caught some air. And we're gonna go over what we liked, what we didn't like, what it cost us, and what you should expect if you were to buy one. As some of you might recall, actually getting a Bronco during the, let's say, notable events of 2021 was very difficult, but we were super excited when ours finally showed up. We wound up with a Badlands trim with a 4-door, the turbo 4-cylinder engine, and the 7-speed manual transmission. And to that, we added the Sasquatch package with its 35-inch tires, locking front and rear differentials, a couple other off-road upgrades. And we also got the tow package, the modular front bumper with the tow hooks, all-weather floor mats, and the cargo area protector. And that brought the starting price of around 48 grand to a total price of around $57,000. We're going to mention this a few times in this video, but your enjoyment of the driving experience comes down to your expectations of the Bronco. To put it plainly, this is a nearly 5,100 pound SUV with a 4-cylinder and a manual transmission and gearing more suited for off-road driving. It's not going to feel quick, and that's before you factor in the 35-inch tires. Now, that said, the 7.4 second 60 mile an hour acceleration we recorded isn't shabby, but it's more the character of the experience. This thing trends more towards agricultural feeling than most cars on the road, and your enjoyment of that depends on how much you want that experience. I don't know, if you find yourself like enjoying binge watching Yellowstone, you'll probably enjoy driving this. Now, how about the manual? Well, it's cool because it's a 7-speed, and that's noted by the C between reverse and first on the shifter. That stands for crawler, and it's this really numerically higher, very short gear that's intended for crawling while you're off-roading. We got more use out of it though in stop and go traffic and in the drive-through when you're just moving at very low speeds, and there it was remarkably effective. Now, this transmission, you buy it because it's cool, not because it's more advantageous in any other capacity. It's not the most optimal transmission for off-roading, and nor is it the most refined or smoothest for commuting, but it is fun and it is significantly cheaper, or it is a fair amount cheaper than the automatic, so it has that going for it. Now, how was it after 40,000 miles? Well, opinions were a bit split, right? Some people thought it felt a little plasticky or that the shifter's throws were overly long. I thought the shifter was fine. I had more of an issue with how isolated the engine was from the driving experience. The first time you hop in this thing, you're not really sure where the clutch take-up is, and you can't really sense where the engine's spinning at unless you're looking at the tach. So it really takes some getting used to figure out how to drive this thing smoothly. So you've probably noticed this guy here. This is part of Ford's performance accessory upgrade that you can get for the Bronco. It increases horsepower and torque and also gives you automatic rev matching. And we installed it late in the Bronco's stay with us, and we immediately regretted not doing that sooner. Not only does it wake up the Bronco's sometimes sleepy feeling turbo 4-cylinder. It also, in our testing, improved acceleration to 60 and a quarter mile by roughly half a second. Not only that, but fuel economy got better too. We do a real-world fuel economy test at 75 miles an hour. The first time we did it, before we installed this, we got 19 mpg. After we installed this, that went to 21 mpg, if you can believe it. And automatic rev matching is just nice to have in a manual. It makes the whole experience smoother to drive. Now, what's good is you can install this at home in your garage, and you don't have to have this thing attached to the windshield. We just did that because more gauges makes me feel like I'm channeling my inner Vin Diesel, right? But just consider this performance upgrade a must-have. To keep your warranty, an ASE certified tech or dealer needs to do the install, but it's simple enough that you can do it at home. What else should you know about the driving experience? Well, this is a wide vehicle and it feels like it while you're driving, but there are a couple things that help you adjust the space or control it in the road. On the hood, there's like these little things that look like front sights where the hood meets the fender on each side. That's really helpful at putting you in the lane visually. I also like the fact that there's a button right here you can press when you're approaching a parking spot that turns on the exterior camera system. A lot of other vehicles have that, but it's really nice to have in this one particularly as well. We should also talk about freeway behavior, because one advantage this has over its key rival, the Jeep Wrangler, is the independent front suspension. And yeah, it's beneficial on the freeway, especially at the speeds that we tend to drive here in the Midwest. With the Wrangler, you end up kind of chasing the wheel a lot at speed, and that can make it feel fatiguing. And that's not the case in this Bronco at all. It's more the interior noise, but we'll talk about that next. Lastly, fuel economy. Over the course of 40,000 miles, we averaged 16 mpg, and that's just 1 mpg shy of the EPA combined rating. Now, for many people on staff, our initial excitement dwindled a bit as the miles came on. And the reason is, the big one is the interior noise inside this cabin. And also, if you're thinking about getting this for commuting, just go ahead and skip the Sasquatch package because it only makes things worse. Basically at, let's say, extra legal Michigan freeway speeds, it's super loud inside this cabin to the point where it's hard to have a conversation, hear a phone call, or even your music. Now, you also kind of have to set your expectations too. This is a tall SUV with 35-inch tires, frameless windows, and a removable roof. It's never going to be quiet. The rest of our complaints were pretty minor, generally focused around this laggy and not very attractive digital tachometer, and plus the digital fuel gauge twice refused to show us that the Bronco was full after refueling. For winter, we replaced the standard Goodyear Territory MT all-terrains with a set of non-studded Nokian Hakkapeliitta LT3s in the same size. And one of our editors noted that they actually improved road manners and interior noise. They also handled deep, wet snow really, really well. In fact, our technical editor, Mike Sutton, said during one particularly bad blizzard, he was one of the few, if not only, vehicles that was able to keep moving. And he actually used this Bronco to help some neighbors get their cars unstuck out of the snow. Now, driving this thing in snow is actually really fun because it's just so capable. The rules of ice and snow just don't really apply to this as much as they do with other vehicles. Going from 4-auto to 4-wheel drive on the fly can help too in some situations as the weather changes. But it's also nice when you find yourself in an empty parking lot with a fresh layer of powder to be able to switch into 2-wheel drive and have some fun. The only downsides is that ice and snow tends to collect right here, and when you park in your garage, it falls off in big, ugly, nasty clumps on the ground. And also, the heated steering is only available on the top Lux trim. That's just unfortunate. Now, maintenance was basically a non-issue. We followed the recommended service interval and went to the dealership every 10,000 miles or so for oil filter, cabin air filter rotation, and so on. I'll point out that our dealership screwed up the first tire rotation. They included the spare in the rotation, not realizing that the other 4 tires were a different make and model. It's kind of understandable, but what's more worrying is they didn't fully tighten the spare when they put it on. That's something one of our staffers found out while stopping for fuel at a road trip, and they had to tighten it themselves. As for damage, we broke the windshield twice and had to replace it twice, and that's not very great because that was $1,000 each time. What else? Well, for off-road duties, we installed a set of Baja Designs fog lights and A-pillar lights. Installation was straightforward, if time-consuming, but it allowed us to split the lighting across 2 fuses and 2 auxiliary switches for bright and I really mean it bright. And these were super helpful for exploring Michigan's seasonal 2-track roads. Ultimately, your enjoyment of the Bronco comes down to your expectations from it. If you're looking at this just as a commuter and you think it looks tough and cool, you're right, but you're probably going to be turned off by the interior noise. On the other hand, if you're looking at this as an alternative to a Wrangler, you'll probably appreciate how much smoother the steering is on the freeway. Now, the Bronco experience wore thin for some on staff over its testing period, but there were plenty who also appreciated it for what it is, and that's a capable and characterful off-roader that you can still get with a stick. And that's something that's becoming increasingly rare these days.